If you love watching personal finance videos here on YouTube, just like myself, you probably follow all of the big names, including Stephan, Meet Kevin, Nate O'Brien, Jeremy from Financial Education, and Andrei Jikh. All of these guys absolutely know their stuff when it comes to earning money, saving money, investing money, building a business, and just money in general, basically. And if you're anything like myself, you probably get super excited when two of them come together and make a video. That exact thing has happened many times in just the last couple of weeks, thanks to a new iced coffee hour podcast put on by Stephan and his editor Jack. They have had many of these guests on the show, some of them even a number of times. And this podcast is awesome because it's actually been a way for these creators to just basically sit down and talk for an hour, hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, and not have a scripted video in front of them. They just kind of talk about what their lifestyle's like, what they don't like, how to invest money, how to earn money, how YouTube works, and it's been really interesting. So Graham and Jack recently had Andrei on the podcast, and at one point they actually mentioned to him, they say, "Hey, Andrei, you need to move in next to us and be our neighbor." If you didn't already know, Graham is actually moving from the LA area to Las Vegas here in the next couple of months. He's released a couple of videos about that, so I'm sure most of you know that, but he's going to be moving there, and he's actually going to be Jeremy's neighbor. Jeremy is from Financial Education. Those two are going to be neighbors. So Graham says, "Look, Andrei, this would be awesome if you moved in next to us, then we could all three be neighbors." That would make for the ultimate YouTube neighborhood, right? Especially for the personal finance space. Can you imagine the collaborations they'd have on a weekly basis with all three of them living there in the same neighborhood? It'd be pretty insane. However, I don't think this is the right move for Andrei, and in fact, I think it's a pretty terrible idea if he did do that. And here's a few reasons why. I'm sharing this perspective because I am a real estate agent and a real estate investor, and I've absolutely seen firsthand the power that real estate investing can have. So my first issue with this is that it's his very first purchase. If Andrei were to move into this house, this would be absolutely awesome. Living in the same neighborhood as them, I can only imagine the type of fun that they would have. However, that neighborhood has a price range of roughly $1.2 to $1.6 million after just a quick Google search. If you've been following Andrei's videos, you probably know that he rents a modest house right now and has a couple of roommates there. I think in one of the videos he says that he's paying roughly $400, maybe $500 per month for his space there, which is a very small living expense. Jumping into a $1.4 million home, even if he can afford it, is definitely going to increase his living expenses drastically. Making a massive jump like this is not something that I would generally recommend. Going from paying like $400 or $500 per month to jumping into a $1.4 million home is massive. You're going to have some drastic changes, and you're going to take on a much higher living expense every single month. Even if you put a lot of money down, you're still going to have property taxes, insurance, and you'll probably still have a mortgage that you're going to have to pay on anyway. So your living expense could easily go from $400 to maybe $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 per month. Again, even if you can afford it, I don't know if it's the best decision. It's kind of the same as going from like riding a bike to basically driving a Ferrari, right? Not something that you typically advise most people to do. I don't know, for me, it's too big of a jump. The other thing is that he's only got about 1.5 years or maybe 2 years of this large YouTube income behind him. He has built up a massive following, which he'll be able to translate into other positions if he needs to, but you never know if this YouTube income is going to dry up. I mean, just a couple of years ago, he was in a drastically different situation. I believe he came from working some type of magic job, probably making somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 per year, I would guess. I don't know, I could be totally wrong, but that's just my guess based off of watching his videos. And I think that now he's probably earning well into the six-figure mark, probably $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, or maybe even $600,000 per year when you look at it over a yearly basis. So I know that that income is going up, and you hope it's going to continue. If you look at the bigger names out there, such as Stephan or Meet Kevin, you can see that making $1 million per year on YouTube is definitely possible, but you never know if it's going to last for a year, maybe 2 years, or it could last another 5 or 10 years. You never know. I'm sure you've heard the stories of people making a ton of money and then going out there and inflating their lifestyle very drastically. Now, I'm not saying that Andrei is going to do that, but I do think that making that jump into, let's say, a $1.5 million home is going to be a big lifestyle inflation. Because he's built such a large following, in fact, he's closing in on 1 million subscribers as of the recording of this video, I do think that he'd be able to pivot pretty easily into another medium if he needed to, right? I mean, I look back at this and I think of all the people who are famous on Vine, right? Vine was huge when I was in high school, and look where that ended up. Only a few people were able to make that pivot, and it was generally the people who had the largest followings. So I think that it could be that same way if YouTube starts to go downhill. I do think that Andrei and some of these other big names would be able to easily pivot into another medium or industry and be able to still see massive success. He would still be able to afford that house, I think, but again, I just keep coming back to that thing where it's a big jump, and I think that there's a better, smarter way to approach it. And so with that, I want to share the path that I think he should take instead. I think that Andrei needs to buy a personal home and he needs to house hack it. If he can get into something that's like a duplex or maybe a home that is set up with a mother-in-law apartment or an accessory dwelling unit, I think that this would be perfect for his very first purchase. He's already used to living in a house with a couple of other roommates, and so making that move into something that he can house hack will allow him to get a little bit more space for himself. It'll allow him a little bit more space to film and just kind of live, but it'll also give him the ability to really take advantage of the benefits that you get from house hacking something. I've been house hacking myself, and I've done it in over 4 houses for the last 5 years. This has been something that's been absolutely life-changing for me, and it's helped me get ahead. Now, obviously, Andrei doesn't necessarily need to do this because he's earning a massive income from YouTube, but I do think it will help him make that lifestyle jump just a little bit smaller, which will help him mitigate that lifestyle inflation. This is going to give him the freedom to keep his living expenses very low for at least another year or two so that he can build a bigger nest egg. Even if it's a nicer duplex, this is still a great way to go from paying, roughly $400 or $500 per month to be able to make that jump up, and maybe he's paying now $1,500 or maybe even $2,000 a month for his portion of that house hack. But I think it's a lot better than jumping up and paying $4,000 or even $5,000 for that $1 million plus home. In addition to buying a house for himself that he can house hack, I think he should also buy another 2 rental properties to help diversify a little bit more into real estate. I think that Andrei is a little bit more on the conservative side when it comes to investing, so I think that he should put down 40 or 50% on these homes. This is going to help with his monthly cash flow from month to month, and it's also going to allow him to take advantage of the low mortgage interest rates that we have right now. So let's say that he's able to cash flow $600 per month per property, which is totally doable. This is another $1,200 that he could put into retirement. He could put it back into the property, into the stock market, or even just spend it on his lifestyle. I know that $1,200 per month is absolutely peanuts compared to what he's bringing in on his YouTube income, but it's a great nest egg. It's a great thing to fall back on should that YouTube income dry up at some point. And the biggest benefit that he's going to see is he's going to be able to capture appreciation on 3 different properties instead of just 1. In some of Andrei's own videos, he even talks about how he'll be able to capture some of the appreciation of that property going up in value, as well as be able to get tax benefits for using part of it as his business expense for making YouTube videos, right? But if he's able to have 3 properties in total, he'll still get the appreciation on all 3 properties instead of just 1, and he'll be able to use those tax benefits for himself as a YouTube creator, using his home as his business, and he'll be able to get tax benefits for owning rental properties as well. So this is massive. You can see the compound growth that having 3 properties will have over the next 30 years as opposed to just 1 property. Now, I'm not saying that he's just going to buy $1 million home and then he'll never invest in other real estate, but I'm just thinking it's going to be a lot easier to buy a couple of rental properties now, buy something that's a little bit more modest, and live there for at least another year, maybe 2 years, until you can build up a little bit more of a nest egg before jumping into that $1 million home. That's at least what I would do. And with that being said, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know I'm going to get some hate for this. I know I might get some love for it. Drop your comments down below what you think about this. And Andrei, if you're watching this video, I like you, man. I'm not bagging on you. I just think that making that jump into that $1 million home probably isn't the right decision for you, but you do you, man. Live life on your own terms, do what makes you happy and what is the best decision for you. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and I'll catch you in the next one.